大家好，欢迎收看木卫二，也就是欧罗巴快船发射的解说直播。因为工作的关系，最近出差比较频繁，能在定点转播的机会其实不多。希望今天能够顺利发射，因为若是再延后几天呢，又要出差，所以不一定能进行直播。昨天在路途中看到星舰惊人表现可以说是暗自为这个 SpaceX 喝彩啊，非常的不容易，也为这么多年的研发可以说是感觉到非常的值得啊。好了，昨天吃过这个星舰大餐的朋友，可能认为今天木卫二快船发射是小菜一碟，但不要小看今天的发射。先丢一个数据好了，这一项木卫二的快船就是所谓的欧罗巴任务啊，耗资52亿美元。待会送上天的是 NASA 为行星任务打造的最大飞行器。我们来听现场的相关解说。
And go into that in detail, but we have a really advanced suite of instruments that are going to help us, answer all these questions about Europa. So we have mass spectrometers, we have a really advanced camera that's going to take amazing photos to help us learn about the geology. We have dust detectors and magnetometers, so we have all sorts of scientific instruments to help answer those questions.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, let's check back in on propellant loading with Daryl and Mick.
And we are moving smoothly through the countdown so far, Mick. No major issues worked. Tim Dunn, the NASA launch manager, mentioned some minor things. You want to review those?
Yeah, those were just minor preps that the team was working prior to getting into prop load, and the team dispositioned those and worked those and acknowledged the things in the procedures. So pretty common, but getting prop load going.
Now we're listening for stage 2 to begin its RP1 load.
好的，您现在看到的是这个佛罗里达州这个甘乃迪太空中心发射场的现场画面。现在准备发射的猎鹰重型火箭正在装填第二节的煤油。我们刚刚知道，就说在倒数前45分钟，第一节的液态氧已经装填，第一节的煤油也已经装填。待会在发射前18分钟会进行所谓的液态氧装填。
And Mick, this is just the 11th launch of a Falcon Heavy, so this is a special occasion. SpaceX launches a lot of rockets. They're approaching something like 400 launches. So this 11th of a Falcon.
好的，如果您现在才加入我们，您现在收看的是准备从佛罗里达太空中心39A 发射场借由猎鹰重型火箭运载升空的木星卫星探测器木卫二快船发射的现场直播。今天希望能为您进行中文解说。现在的发射时间是从前几天开始一直到11月6号都是整个的发射窗口。不过刚才有说希望今天能够顺利发射，因为再延后我又必须要移动，所以不一定能够进行直播。
To be able to get the ECS and GN2 flowing in the fairing around Europa Clipper to maintain all those requirements. Ingenious thing that they've done.
大家可以看到画面上，今天发射的是这个猎鹰重型火箭两边是捆绑这个猎鹰的第一节。如果大家留意看可以发觉这两节猎鹰身上都黑黑的并不是那么光滑细致那主要是这一次这2枚猎鹰捆绑式的猎鹰都用过前面已经用过5次，这一次是第6次发射。核心段以及两边的捆绑第一节或是第一级火箭，今天都会丢弃，也就是不会进行回收，所以并不会有那种壮丽回收的画面我们来听现场相关解说。
Megan, Mission Control has been conducting readiness polls team-wide check-ins before launch to confirm everything is good to go. The activity lead is making sure the launch-specific software is ready to run, and after liftoff, she'll be monitoring it to ensure everything on board is working as expected. While Mission Control takes care of those final details, let's take a closer look at why Europa is the focus of this mission. Earlier, I spoke with Europa Clipper Deputy Project Scientist Bonnie Barati, who gives us a glimpse of what's beneath the moon's icy crust.
您看到的是这个 JPL， 也就是南加州的喷射推进实验室的现场也是这一项计划的主导机构。很幸运，这个离我所在的地方比较近，所以以前比较有多机会可以进去采访的工作。那有的时候必须要半夜去，因为它的行星任务并不一定是在白天有时候晚上有一些重要的关键。另外也曾经进去采访过有一位华裔小朋友，就是为这个好奇号探测船命名的小朋友。我如果没记错，是一位姓马的小朋友。另外 JPL 在地面上的确有一个同等尺寸的一个探测车，也就是好奇号在天空进行探测的时候，地面上的人员可以借由地面上同比例的探测车来了解情况。这让我想到有些人担心，就是说很多年的登月任务地面上好像也有一个模拟场景我不知道是不是类似的状况，但是我知道每一个航空器发射进太空的时候，在地面不同的太空中心当中会有同比例的一个模拟的一个东西，可以帮他们一旦发现状况的时候可以找到问题。这是我了解的一些最新情况。您现在如果才加入我们，现在收看的是木星卫星探测器木卫2号快船准备发射的现场直播至于这一次发射有什么重要性，我们来听现场相关解说。
Earths inside of it, and on top of that, the orbit of Europa is not quite circular, so when it gets close to Jupiter, it gets kind of squashed, and then when it gets further away, it releases this mechanical energy into thermal energy, and we believe this comes out as thermal vents at this interface between the rocky mantle and this ocean. And not only do these thermal vents release energy and additional chemicals, but they provide the ideal region for a habitable environment, which is the main goal of our mission. We're looking for an environment that could support life.
And there is so much.
科学家刚刚特别解释这次任务的主要目的这次任务的主要目的其实并不是像许多媒体宣传的是要寻找外星生命它是要寻找的是什么呢？是寻找一个外星生命可以存在的条件，就是能不能找到像这样的环境，有机会让生命可以生存。所以这是这一次木卫2的一个主要的任务科学家观测推断木卫2的冰层下面可能存在所谓的咸水海洋，也就是海啦，并对此是充满兴趣。科学家认为这个木卫2是蕴藏了孕育生命的一些必要的条件跟成分。我们来听相关的解说。
Ingredients for life. NASA has long been on a quest to find life beyond Earth to better understand how we came to be. NASA is also focusing on the water on our own moon in preparation for future Artemis missions. Artemis will mark the first time astronauts return to the lunar surface in over 50 years to eventually send people to Mars. Water plays a key role in this plan. If NASA can figure out how to harvest and use the moon's water, astronauts could drink it, turn it into breathable air, or even use it for rocket fuel. Scientists think the moon's poles might have tons of ice, while the sunlit areas have a lot less water, about 100 times less than the Sahara Desert. Artemis 2 will be NASA's first crewed mission under the campaign.
现在是有关科研任务的介绍这一次的任务整个计划耗资52亿美元如果没记错的话有这个4000人参与这一次的任务 那另外就是这一艘这个木卫二快船哦，也可以说是 NASA 至今打造最大的行星探测器，长约这个30.5公尺，宽有17.6公尺啊。整个太阳能们展开啊，大概是一个这个篮球场大小，整个重量是高达这个6000公斤，所以等于说是今天这个猎鹰要把这么庞大的一个飞行器啊，能够要送上去，也是非常了不起的事。木卫二快船的太阳能板啊，张开比一个篮球场要大，为的是利用这个太阳能为这个科学仪器、电子设备还有其他的系统可以供应电力，因为整个任务的飞行时间呢相当长，要耗费5年半，大约飞行29亿公里才能抵达这个卫星附近，展开这个环绕木卫二这一颗卫星进行49次的环绕飞行。我们来听现场解说，现在距离发射还有26分03秒。
Hitting Florida only a few weeks ago. As we get ready to send the spacecraft to study its ocean world, its climate and environment, can you reflect on our own climate and the increase in storm activity?
Yeah, so Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene before it had devastating impacts across Florida and throughout the southeast. And our focus right now is making sure that we can get information to first responders so they can help with recovery efforts. At the same time, scientists are studying hurricanes so that we can better understand how they form, how they've changed over time, and use that information to better predict future storms and plan for the future.
现场在讨论就是接连2个飓风一个是这个海伦，一个是密尔顿，先后袭击美国的东南部让这个太空中心造成紧张，也让这一次的发射从10月10号是延后到现在。那今天如果能够顺利发射是最好，如果不能顺利发射，他们还准备了很多天的备用发射时间了。不过刚刚一开头为您解说有提到，就是说因为我在行进当中并不是每一次的发射都可以为您进行这个中文解说的直播，也欢迎大家加入我们的讨论。
But while Europa Clipper is exploring Europa, we'll have crews at the moon, further understanding the formation of the moon and how the formation of the solar system as well. So it's a complementary effort that goes to our whys at NASA, which is science, national posture, and inspiration. So we'll be doing that with both the Artemis and the Europa missions.
Thank you guys both so much for joining us. Megan, back over to you.
Now, the Europa Clipper mission has captured the attentions of people all over the world, even a beloved coach from the show, Ted Lasso.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Hunt, and I'm not a real coach, but this is a real beard. Today you have teams of people gathered for the launch of NASA's next big adventure.
现场也为转播安排各地的祝贺、鼓励跟花絮也就是强调各界是关心这一次的发射。事实上，这一次耗费的任务是52亿美元，这个52亿的这个数字等于是星舰在前期所花下的钱现在外界推估目前星舰计划大概花了这个50亿到100亿之间这当然跟这个以前 NASA 的这个所谓的这个太空任务不能相比因为跟过去的任务相比，现在花的可以说是小钱。不过这一次这个木卫二的探测对于这个科研任务有长足的这个影响，因为他们是要探索这个在木卫二冰冷表面和底层是不是有类似海洋的一个状况存在，因为以前都是理论嘛，那现在必须要经过实际的探测，才能评估潜在宜居性以及有没有生命存在的可能性。
you reacted to that. What about that particular word really spoke to you out of that story?
Yeah, I think it just really speaks to the humanity. You know, we are all humans. We're trying to do good things here, and when we're kind to each other, it really makes a difference. So him kind of acknowledging how important that is for our team to work well together, yeah, it just means a lot.
Yeah, that was a good pep talk.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks. All right, so we are now 22 minutes from liftoff, and we have some time now to take some more of your questions.
现在距离发射还有22分06秒。在稍待一个重要环节，关键就是在倒数倒计时的18分30秒第二节的火箭要进行这个液太阳的装填，这是一个重要的步骤。然后接下来在倒数前7分钟左右这个所有的这个猎鹰重型火箭的引擎要开始冷却，发射前进行冷却。然后发射前倒数大概1分钟左右会交由这个电脑来决定掌控整个发射的程序，也就是进入1分钟之后会交给这个电脑来进行控制。然后最后倒数前45秒，这是一个发射指挥官可以喊停或者是要继续进行的一个关键时刻。待会我们会看到发射的话，如果顺利一切进行下去，如果中间发现有一些故障要排除，也可能中途会叫停。这是目前在发射程序上的一些解说。
A huge variety of speeds that we end up at getting out to Jupiter.
Wow, thank you for that. Again, thank you for your questions. #AskNASA. Okay, we're coming up on another fueling milestone. Let's check back in with Daryl and Mick.
All right, thank you very much. And fueling going well right now. We're watching some telemetry on our screens right now. We've got RP1 on the first stage, about 75% complete, about 70% complete on LOX also on the first stage, but we're almost done loading the RP1 on the second stage.
Yeah, stage 2 RP1 load complete, should be finishing up here shortly.
第一节刚才现场解说，在这个液太阳的部分已经装填了75%，煤油是70%。您可以看到现场有这个像是烟雾缭绕的，这个不是烟雾，是因为在灌注这个低温超低温液太阳的时候，会让附近的空气会有这个冷凝结的一个现象所以看起来像是一个雾气的蒸腾的一个状况，实际上它是这个非常冷的水汽。我们可以看到这一次是借由2枚捆绑猎鹰火箭来进行这个发射。待会所有的火箭都不会进行回收，唯一回收的是您看到的这个整流罩的部分。这个整流罩的部分会回收以后再进行利用。当然有朋友说最喜欢看回收今天可能看不到了，因为今天底下的2个 booster， 也就是2个这个助推的火箭实际上已经用过5次，这一次是第6次，也是他们最后一次发挥功能。一再使用可以让这个发射的成本降低。
Portions represent the flybys each pass of Clipper as it swoops in and then retreats. And then the dot in the center can be Europa, and the star shape can be the spacecraft. They put a lot of thought and design into this logo.
Yeah, it's a beautiful logo. Everybody is on board. It's just incredible to me how much the team, the community, and everybody's just excited about this mission and science, as Jenny was saying. And I know she's excited for this also, she and the JPL team. But beautiful logo.
Yep, looks good on a T-shirt and on the side of the rocket.
Stage 2 LOX load has started.
And there goes Stage 2 LOX load. So the final tank that needed to be filled.
刚刚为您提到的第2节，这个进行着燃料的装填了。
Great to hear that tanking's going well. All right, NASA's ambitious journey to Europa has inspired U.S. poet.
我们看到雄霸加入我们昨天因为我一直在行进当中，事实上连发射直播根本也看不到，只有在最后它在飞行要降落前，它有机会有稳定的网路，更不要说是能为大家直播。
Inky with black expansiveness, we point to the planets we know. We pin quick wishes on stars. From Earth, we reach
事实上，这项计划是进行非常多年，然后耗费的经费是高达52亿美元，牵涉到的科学家、工程人员有高达4000人。刚才在稍早前的解说，这个工程人员有特别强调，因为这个木卫2这一次的任务这个太空辐射非常非常的重。他们非常担心对于科研仪器会造成损坏，所以都是进行这个重装保护都是有这个外壳来加厚厚的外壳对这些仪器进行防辐射的一个保护。另外，每一条线路都是用人工用铝箔纸来进行这个包裹。我们看到有朋友发问，木卫2降落是 NASA 还是 SpaceX 控制首先这个木卫2它不会降落，它是飞跃49次意思要到2030年以后才会接近木卫2展开这个环绕飞行另外是由 NASA 还是 SpaceX 控制这里是由 NASA 来进行控制，而且严格说是由这个 NASA 的喷射推进实验室来进行控制。
Singing its call in the bough of a wind-shaken tree. We are creatures of constant awe, curious at beauty, at leaf and blossom, at grief and pleasure, sun and shadow. And it is not darkness that unites us, not the cold.
好的，如果您刚刚加入我们，现在收看的是准备从佛罗里达甘乃迪太空中心 39A 发射场借由猎鹰重型火箭运载升空的木星卫星的探测器木卫2快船发射的现场直播。现在距离发射还有15分30秒。
Of small invisible worlds, of a need to call out through the dark.
We had a little bit of technical difficulties there. The package paused a little bit, but I still think that you could really feel how powerful that piece is. And now we're so lucky to have Ada Lavone here with us. Thank you so much for being here. That was so moving. I was getting goosebumps.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. Such a thrill.
I want to ask you, what made you want to write about Europa, and how did you find, truly the perfect words for that piece?
Oh, thank you. I think for me it was so incredible to be invited to write this poem, and when I was struggling with this incredible...
可以听到现场在进行讨论木卫2的快船会先飞经火星，然后再掉头飞越地球，利用这2颗行星的引力牵引来增加动力，再弹射回去接近木星以及木卫2，并且在环绕这个木卫23年的期间要飞越这个木卫2这颗卫星49次。这一次计划其实有3个主要的科研目标，我之前有看到就是说是它主要是要测量木卫2外层的冰层厚度，以及冰层与地底层的一个之间的交互作用以及关系并且希望还可以分析这个木卫2的成分，并确认木卫2的地质结构这个是主要的一个目的许多新闻为了要耸动很标题就说是这一次出发要准备探寻外星生命。其实科学家一再强调，木卫2快船任务不是生命探测任务，它只是想要寻找这个生命存在的环境条件以上是我所了解有关于这一次木卫2的一些科研任务的目标。那这个任务时间拉得非常长，一直要到2030年以后，也就是飞了大约5年半，要飞29亿公里才能够进入环绕木星的轨道。
And we can't be lonely if we are all connected to this universe.
Well put. Thank you so much. And one other note that I want to point out is, Jenny has always talked about this, that mix between science and art. Really there is a connection. we should be talking about.
Yeah, I think that it's so important. In fact, we do ourselves a disservice when we separate arts and science because we're connected by curiosity and wonder.
Perfect. You are so well spoken. I see why you're the U.S. Poet Laureate.
现在距离发射还有12分20秒，稍待一个重要关键，就是在倒数前7分钟啊，这个猎鹰重型火箭要开始进行引擎冷却。
Really, as Ada was, to write about our universe, and you want to write your own poetry, the QR code on your screen now is going to take you to a space poetry writing activity brought to you by NASA JPL. All right, another check of the clock. We are now 11 minutes, 51 seconds and counting from liftoff. Jenny, let's squeeze in a few more NASA social questions. What do you think?
Absolutely, I'm ready for them.
Okay, let's pull the first one up on the screen right now. This one is, how can we convert images to evidence of valid life and organisms? If it's proven, what are the next steps?
Absolutely. So, Europa Clipper is not a life detection mission, so we're not trying to prove that there is life there now. But what we are trying to do is characterize if this could be a habitable environment. And so, but even so, the images that we're going to get, we learn so much from images.
利用这一段时间呢，来跟大家讨论一下待会发射后的程序也因为之前说，因为是进出行程的不方便，所以没有为各位准备这个图表。发射后1分多钟的时候，大概是1分07秒。您可以注意，就是说是火箭任务的时候，大概从58、57秒一直到1分10秒这一段时间呢，通常火箭会达到所谓 max Q， 跟每一个火箭会不一样。那所谓 max Q 就是最大动压点，也就是舰体承受最大动态压力的一个临界点另外在3分03秒会把这个两边的这个助推段，就是2节捆绑式的猎鹰会把它引擎关掉。在4秒钟之后，就3分07秒左右，这2节这个助推段会进行分离。不过我们刚才有提过，就是这2个助推段会烧毁溅落。它并不会进行回收，所以今天的回收大戏可能会看不到。另外在4分钟的时候，这个第1节的火箭，也就是核心段的火箭引擎会关掉，所谓进入 MECO， 也就是主引擎关掉这个指令另外在4分06秒的时候，一个关键点就是第1节、第2节，也就是第1级、第2级火箭会进行分离。然后在4分13秒的时候，第2节火箭会开始点火，然后4分半会有2个会回收到地面的所谓的整流罩会弹射开来接着进行这个第2节的一个飞行。那第2节飞行会进行开关，大概是2次，然后到1个小时02分的时候，这时候我们才会知道所谓的木卫2快船这一艘这个太空探测器是不是成功跟这个第2节进行分离。这是今天发射后的一些程序。现在距离这个发射还有8分52秒待会7分钟要进行引擎冷却。
Nostalgic, just so really excited to get Clipper up into space where it belongs.
Yeah, I know this is super thrilling for you and the Clipper team, but this is also a huge moment for astrobiologists and really the scientific community at large.
Absolutely. So astrobiology is kind of the study of how, life is distributed around the universe.
RP1 load is complete.
And so one of the things that was really exciting about Europa is that it's a place in our own solar system that could be habitable. And so this, going to Europa to see it means a lot for the astrobiology community and, of course, for humanity at large.
Well, Jenny, here we go with the final moments of the launch countdown. Let's head over to Daryl.
看到有朋友在讨论据我了解，它的确是要利用引力牵引跟弹射而实际上这种做法在远在我记得1960年代的时候，所谓航海家探测器 以及有人叫航海家啦，有人叫做不同的翻译名词，要进行这个多个行星的这个探测跟撞油，也是利用这样的引力不断的牵引可以节省一些燃料。那这也对于科研任务非常非常重要。
We'll be finishing up here shortly as the team gets the vehicle ready.
The team at JPL and California also on console for their space just shifted their spacecraft to internal power.
Yeah, they started transitioning to internal power. We'll get full confirmation of that in about 2 minutes, but things are good to go, and things are looking good. Preparations for the spacecraft to move forward.
Engine chill has started.
There we hear the call for booster engine chill started on the
这是我们刚刚前面提到，就是引擎要进行冷却。
12:06 p.m. today.
T-minus 6 minutes and 45 seconds and counting for liftoff of SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket with NASA's Europa Clipper spacecraft. At the very top, it is a beautiful day here in Florida for launching a rocket.
NYRP1 load is complete.
As we wrap up loading.
佛罗里达州天气晴，今天适合发射的指数是95%。
Now we await for all 3 of the LOX tanks inside the first stage booster to get to their full point. You can tell they're most of the way there. As you look on your screen there, you see the icy cold rocket condensing that Florida air.
Yeah, the team's continuing to load second stage also with LOX, and we're getting very close. We can see on the telemetry here that the LOX load of the 3 boosters is getting near.
在这边也预告一下，待会点火指令下达，进行点火到真正爬升大概有6秒的空档，也就是倒数前6秒，它就会先下令引擎开始点火，准备启动。爬升是当然是这个0.0分0秒开始爬升。
Going to start configuring the tower, the strong back from the rocket. That happens in a little less than a minute.
We just heard from the SMD and NOM that the spacecraft is verified on internal power, and things are looking good for the Europa Clipper spacecraft.
We're also listening to the launch teams as they discuss the data coming in that they're looking at for the rocket.
The teams continue to follow the procedure, as I said.
网上有好朋友在讲，就说耗时6年抵达，为什么不降落表面一来是降落的太空探测器的任务目标跟飞越进行探测的设计以及装置并不相同，要能够降落然后进行探测，特别是木卫二被认为上面是一个厚厚的冰层甚至冰层有破裂的现象。事实上，这个降落所谓的木卫二它所这个耗费以及设计上的更动会是非常非常的巨大，并不是他们在现阶段打算的任务未来会不会有这样的安排和进行我们不知道。但是今天的这一次任务可以说是一次的基础，可以为未来进行木卫二宜居环境进行进一步的探测。
As we just got completion of LOX load for the Y booster. We're looking for now the center core and the plus Y.
NLM, it's the LD on the countdown.net with a final status check. Yes, LD, this is NLM on countdown.
在这边也跟大家算是闲聊吧。事实上，这个甘乃迪太空中心它是有出售观看火箭发射的门票，也就是说，你可以买票，它会有这个车子带你到一个比较好的地点来观看火箭发射。我不知道现场有没有这个观众朋友曾经去过，可以跟我们分享这样的经验。但是 这个看火箭发射有一点风险，有时候就是你今天大老远跑去买了票，结果他今天不发射，那这个东西就麻烦了。好的，我们来看现场的发射的一些最新状况。
Progress forward with LOX load. Center core is just finished up, so all 3 boosters are filled with LOX and RP1. The second stage has RP1 on, and we're getting near completion of stage 2 LOX load as the team continues to look at that temperature in the second stage. But we did hear NASA launch manager Tim Dunn tell Charlie Myers, SpaceX launch director, that they are go for launch pending the resolution of this temperature issue. So the team has continued to work that, and the team will continue to progress forward in their procedure.
And so these discussions.
目前看来倒计时的时间还在继续进行啊，希望今天可以顺利发射，因为过几天我又要移动跟出差。在倒数前1分钟59秒的时候会决定是不是要交由电脑发射程序，这是一个关键。另外在45秒的时候，所谓的现场发射指挥官会做另外一个要不要继续进行的决定。
And things are progressing forward for the launch this morning.
Ground gas goes out.
1分26秒。
Until liftoff. Weather is 95% go.
有一点紧张啊，您看到画面是52亿美元，就在这几秒钟准备要出发。
Along with a brand new center core booster and a spacecraft bound for the Jupiter Moon Europa.
Yeah, Daryl, I can confirm, listening to the teams, that everybody is go for launch. They have resolved the temperature issue they were looking at on second stage. Everybody's given the go for that, and Falcon is in startup, so the flight computer has taken over, and we're getting ready for the
SpaceX launch director is go for launch.
And there we hear Charlie Myers say that SpaceX is ready for launch, and Europa Clipper getting ready to lift off.
And there's a great update as now it vents out the LOX inside the line of the transporter erector. We are inside of 30 seconds.
30 seconds and counting.
30秒。木卫2准备出发。
15 seconds and counting.
And here we go. 10, 9, 8,
Wow.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
Wow.
And liftoff.
爬升。
Liftoff of Falcon Heavy with Europa Clipper, unveiling the mysteries of an enormous ocean lurking beneath the icy crust of Jupiter's moon, Europa.
Engine chamber pressures are nominal.
See that the chamber pressures are nominal as we hear. All 27 Merlin engines look great.
爬升非常非常美丽啊！待会1分07秒是所谓 Max Q 最大动压点是一个关键。3分03秒，两边的助推段的引擎会关闭。有朋友讲到说，看这个东西风险是被砸了，不是啊，是有可能白跑一趟，买了票看不到。
Power and telemetry nominal.
Here the power and telemetry on the vehicle are good there. Everything's looking really
Falcon
well.
Heavy is supersonic.
They have reduced power in the center core to get through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the launch vehicle as we approach that. The 2 side boosters at full throttle.
5、6、7最大动压点。
A beautiful shot there is our camera team.
Max Q.
Locking into the rocket on a clear blue sky. The view from the booster cam.
你可以看到这个镜头，就是等一下 booster 会先把引擎关闭。
Next thing up in about 2 minutes will be booster engine cutoff, where we see the 2 side booster engines, all 18, shut down and get ready for booster separation. But the vehicle is performing very well. Looking at all the telemetry that we have, power and trajectory are nominal.
We've been flying for
有朋友问这一次会不会回收？这一次不会回收，只有整流罩会回落地面。1枚中间的核心段跟2枚的助推猎鹰都不会回收。特别是2枚已经用过5次，这一次是第6次的发射。
because all of the performance is needed to push Europa Clipper into its proper orbit.
Things continue to look good as the vehicle heads down its ascent phase here. All telemetry is looking very nominal for this flight this morning. Falcon Heavy is performing very well.
We're just about 30 seconds away from separating those side boosters. Their engines will cut off first, then they will separate.
MVAC is chilling.
3分03秒的时候，引擎会关闭。
And that's where we need to get the engine chilled to the proper temperatures before flowing liquid oxygen and RP1 into it. So they're conditioning the engine to make sure things are ready for when it's ready to start up.
Stand by for booster separation.
Booster engine cutoff. Side booster separation confirmed.
好的，现在成功的分离。
Those two boosters previously flown on Psyche. This will be their 6th flight. We thank you for their service this morning. They did a great job of getting Falcon Heavy and Europa Clipper on its way as the center core takes over and continues mission.
现在靠这个中间核心段继续推进，在4分02秒的时候，中间核心段的引擎会进行关闭。
And just a little more, 20 seconds from now, we'll get the cutoff of the main engine on the center core booster that remains. 4 seconds after that, we will separate. Flying out over the Atlantic Ocean. There's a look from inside.
There we see stage 1
stage separation confirmed.
And stage separation from the center core. Getting ready for MVAC startup, SES-1.
第一节跟第二节成功分离哦。第二节的火箭点火。
Next thing up in about 10 seconds will be fairing separation.
好，下一个阶段是所谓整流罩要弹射。
It's protected Europa Clipper on its ascent up into space, but once we get into space, we don't need that fairing anymore.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Fairing has separated, and those will be recovered, Daryl, by SpaceX's own recovery ship, Go Cosmos.
And there you see them falling away into space. That is the only part of this rocket that will be recovered.
The glow of the MVAC-D engine as it performs its first burn here. This is about a 3-minute and 47-second burn. Things are looking great. Matter of fact, this is one of the shortest first burns that has been done on a Falcon Heavy by SpaceX, but it is required to get us into that parking orbit for that long coast.
有朋友问是不是因为要用光所有的燃料啊？据我了解也是这样的回事，因为这一次3枚这个第一节啊，另外2节是用过5次，这一次是第6次，但中间这一节的核心段是新的。主要是因为必须要把燃料耗尽，它不会有多余的燃料可以让它来进行这个回推点火以及降落点火，这是最主要的原因。没错，有朋友帮忙解答中年大叔的全集异想世界，有提到燃料用尽，让任务的载荷可以获得最多的速度。
The second stage and on planet Earth.
Center core FPS has saved.
There we've heard that the flight termination system on the center core has been saved as it heads back to splash down. Things are looking good. I can tell you, Daryl, we had a beautiful weather day for launch, and as we're looking at MVAC flying in space with Europa Clipper, it is such a gorgeous view with Earth behind it, and so we could not have had a better day for a mission launch today.
No doubt about it, Mick. It was simply gorgeous. We had a hurricane a week ago, but after that pushed out, it brought us in its wake near perfect weather for launch. And now we're into space, dealing with the harsh conditions up there.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 2 has made its way into space far enough away for us to be able to save the flight termination system.
等一下，在7分53秒左右啊，第2节的火箭的引擎会先关闭。
getting Europa Clipper into that parking orbit and on its way for the next firing that we will have, the second stage, number 2, to get it into that interplanetary transfer orbit that we need to get Europa Clipper started. So things looking very well this morning. We're about 30 seconds from that stage engine cutoff, which we refer to as SECO 1.
That's right. We'll get into that.
所谓 SECO 1的指令就是第二节引擎关闭，是在7分53秒左右，第二节引擎你会看到可以关闭。
High resolution data from the cameras. Burn looking good, just a few seconds away from cutting off from that first burn.
整流罩如何回收啊？就是让它掉落地面，掉落海面。
And there it goes. The first burn is complete.
现在进入这个
Things look really well on the stage burn result. Apogee, perigee, and everything for the mission looks really good. Engine performance, very well performance by the second stage for this first burn. And things continue to look good as we.
我们看到这个雪兔 Gaming 啊，网友说应该是任务安全优先，所以直接不回收，用光它，因为这是 SpaceX 帮客户进行推送的主要这个业务啊，也就是说，人家耗费多少亿几千万上亿的经费啊，来委托这个发射，必须要达到帮客户达到这个目标。至于你用什么车运送，将来要怎么处理，那是你自己的事情，不会考虑到要回收，必须要达到这个任务目标为优先哦。
If the pictures are as clear as we've seen so far, we will see it in all of its glorious detail. All right. We will continue monitoring the coast.
现在是这个影像画面传送的盲区，现在可以看到示意图。
Of course, any updates that we have, we'll check back in with you in a little bit. But for now, let's send it back to the host desk with Megan and Jenny.
Oh, wow. I mean, if you're just joining us, welcome live to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we just saw a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket soar off the launch pad with the Europa Clipper spacecraft. I thought, I'm surprised you're here and composed, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, you did a good job of keeping me upright watching the launch.
Yeah, how are you feeling? How was it to see that and feel that too? I mean, that was honestly one of the loudest and most powerful rocket launches that I've personally felt here on the Cape.
It was very emotional in a good way, right? Just kind of overwhelming with just the awe of it, and that it's finally going up into space, and just I feel almost at a loss for words.
Yeah, I know. She was like, I am sobbing. She just kept saying, I am sobbing. I am sobbing. I mean, but everybody can understand that, right? I mean, and this is one of my favorite parts of being part of the broadcast, because I do get to watch it with the co-host, and really, this is so much of your life that you're seeing culminate in a rocket launch.
It is. It's a huge. Again, it's almost indescribable. Just the amount of time and effort and all the people involved that got us to here, and to witness that moment is just unlike anything I can describe.
And can you believe it? We are still very much at the beginning of this spacecraft's journey. It is headed for Jupiter's icy moon Europa, which scientists believe could be the best chance of finding the ingredients for life outside our planet. It will take the spacecraft 5.5 years to travel the nearly 2 billion miles to Europa. This is a mission developed by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California and Johns Hopkins University's Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland. Now, Jenny, why does the team think that Europa is the best chance of finding those ingredients for life as we know it?
Yeah, you know, on this planet, everywhere we find water, we find life. And so, you know, that we think that there's this massive ocean of water underneath the ice on Europa.
有朋友讲说，这个5年半很久，不知道5年半以后会不会再为大家进行这个直播啊？不过在这5年当中啊，有非常非常多的太空任务。阿提米斯以及星舰的进展可以说是太空比以前的几十年都要热闹，所以应该还有很多可以值得去关注的一些计划。
And by exploring Europa, we're getting a taste of what these ocean worlds are like. Europa probably has beneath its icy surface, a global ocean of water.
We think there are thermal vents in this vast subsurface ocean. There may be primitive organisms there, similar to the original primitive organisms on Earth from which we all evolved.
I just love Europa's surface. I think it's one of the most complex surfaces in our solar system. Typically, when you look at another planetary surface, it's covered with craters, just like our moon.
There are shockingly few impact craters. That means something is going on to erase the craters, just like happens here on Earth, and on Earth we call that geology. One of the key questions right now that we have about Europa is whether or not there's plume activity.
Plumes are one way that you can definitely get ocean material to the surface. We really need a spacecraft in the system that's watching Europa to see when those plumes are happening, if they're happening. Europa Clipper is orbiting Jupiter, and it's performing 49 flybys of Europa.
Each time we make a flyby, we turn on all of the instruments at once.
Most of us know about cameras because that's what our eyes see, but there is a whole slew of...
我们有提到这一次这个木卫二准备飞越这个木卫二表面49次。刚才有朋友提到一个非常有意思的问题，他说花了这么多时间哦，为什么不直接降落？其实也是相当有道理。但是木卫二它的一个环境哦，是一个辐射非常重的一个环境，所以你降落的这个仪器设备，不要说是人啊，或者是光是仪器设备，必须要抵御这个辐射的干扰，能够发挥功用，实际上就是一个挑战。我们之前提到工程师说这个木卫二上面的探测器每一根线路都要用人工用铝箔纸去把它包裹，然后让这个辐射线不会对传输以及仪器进行干扰。所以想象中的状况跟实际上遇到的难度是有一定的一些这个差距的。
Ice shell.
Last but not least, we have a gravity experiment using the communication system of the spacecraft, and from that we can get essentially a map of the gravity field.
We can get the shape, understand.
朋友，这个雪兔 Gaming 说，它是利用引力弹弓效应吗？可以这样说，就是利用这个引力的牵引跟弹射来进行不断的往前这个前进哦，这样子可以节省掉一些所谓的这个，也不是说就是它的动力跟燃料。
It would be awesome.
We don't know if Earth is the only place that life got started, or if it's really common. And a really important way to get at that is to understand, is there life elsewhere in our solar system?
And we were proud to host JPL directors here at Kennedy for launch. She's with Tony now, and they both had a spectacular view of launch.
That's right, Megan. What a spectacular sight indeed. And like you mentioned, we have a very special guest with us, JPL Director Lori Leshin. Lori, congratulations first off on what a beautiful launch and now an exciting...
现在接受访问是位于南加州的 JPL， 也就是喷射推进实验室的负责人，他在佛罗里达太空中心接受现场的访问。
You know, more than 4,000 people across many different organizations have worked on Europa Clipper, and we're so proud of them and so grateful for their hard work, for their families who've supported them, and especially the 150 or so with us from JPL who rode out the hurricane here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, you know, can you tell us a little bit more about why planetary missions are important in general that we go and study?
Well, you know, it's really about who we are. Even though it's a robot we're sending out into space, it's a very human endeavor to want to explore the unknown, and especially to want to understand where life came from, how we originated, whether there could be other life out there. It's really a fabulous quest, and we're so fortunate to be able to do that through NASA's science program.
Definitely. And, you know, can you tell us a little bit more about the Europa Clipper vault plate and why teams decided to include one?
The vault plate is so wonderful. It builds on a great history. People know about the Voyager Golden Record, which carried messages from Earth into deep space. It's kind of following in that tradition, and to have a special poem written by Ada Limon, the U.S. Poet Laureate, We're over the moon, over Europa, about being able to carry her words with us and to carry 2.6 million names of Earthlings with us as we go explore Europa.
Absolutely, a lot of special mementos on there indeed. Now that launch has occurred, what are some of those key milestones that the teams are going to be looking out for on its way, on Europa's way to Jupiter?
Right, so just today we'll be looking about 1 hour out is when we separate from the upper stage of the rocket. 3 or 3.5 hours out is very important because that's when our solar arrays, those giant size of a basketball field or basketball court solar arrays deploy. We need those because we need power. And then in just 4 months' time, we'll fly by Mars for our first gravity assist.
记得之前有看过这一次的木卫二任务啊，当时有几个动力选择，一个就是所谓核衰变的电池，另外一个就是利用太阳能。最后采用这个太阳能方案，也让这一次的木卫二在展开时候是非常巨大，可以说是这个是一个非常的大的一个太阳能板，有大到什么程度？将近一个篮球场大小，甚至比篮球场还大。那我们有看到，就说是有关于引力的讨论。
There's a lot happening in there that you can't see. That's why I caught up with mission manager Tracy Drain. So let's take a look at a behind-the-scenes breakdown.
And Tracy, tell us about the space here in Mission Control. Here in Mission Control, you'll see a lot of folks who are paying.
没错，这个勒鲁兄弟游乐园这位朋友他说，年初有开放将名字送上木星的瓶中信，终于等到发射。没错，我之前应该也在社群当中有跟大家有提过，大家可以到这个网站上去登记，他就会用这个奈米技术吧，把你的名字刻上这个一个板子，然后带到这个木星的这个木卫二飞船上面。它真正也不是投到木星上了，并没有真正投瓶子上去，主要是一个象征性的意义。
They're paying attention to the link between the spacecraft and the deep space network on the ground. They actually get to hit the button that sends commands to the spacecraft when we're ready to do that. Behind them is Telecom, who is responsible for all the hardware on board, the radio, making sure that that's working so the spacecraft can communicate to the ground. And there are some other roles too who are ensuring that the data from the spacecraft is coming to this room properly.
没错，朋友说木星巨大的引力会不会有影响啊？的确会有影响。它是一个其实是一个助力，利用这个引力，所以木卫二在绕行的时候，它不是光绕木卫二，对不起，应该说木卫二快船它在飞行的时候，不是光绕木卫二的卫星，它是连这个木星的整个轨道是一起绕行，就是绕着木星整个系统，然后会飞越这个木卫二来进行拍摄。
Fault protection is ensuring that if something ran on board in response to a problem, we understand what that is. Power is ensuring things like the solar array and the battery are producing enough energy for the spacecraft. Thermal is making sure that everything stays within the right temperature ranges. Propulsion is noting everything that has to do with thrusting on the spacecraft is working. Then guidance, navigation, and control and motion.
有一点跟大家分享，现在他在介绍的这 JPL 就是位于南加州跟这个加州理工学院合作的这个喷射推进实验室啊，他现在在介绍每一个重要的岗位，他的工作，你会看到这发射不是坐了好几排人吗？他每个人可以说是都各司职守都有自己的工作。那换一个角度来说的话，这个木星至少要飞大概5年半的时间，也就是说这一群的控制员跟科学家未来5年半的时间呢，都有重要任务必须要守护，必须要坚守岗位，能够继续在这样的工作上能够不断的进行，才能够保证整个任务顺利成功。所以我们过去可以看到，如果大家看到那个航海家我曾经为您做过的视频有些这个所谓的专案和计划经理做了这个几十年，等于所有的职场生涯都是在一个计划上。当然随着任务的衰减和结束人员会慢慢的裁减以及调动。不过 因为还有5年半的时间嘛，可以说你可以看到画面上面的一些科学家，他们未来5年半、6年都会要继续跟踪这样的任务。
Humans can be pretty smart, and we do discover a lot of great things, but there is still so much that we don't know.
This is like one of the most exciting times to be working in space.
是的 ，NASA 应该说是飞5年半，另外还要绕行3年半，大概有9年的时间。南加州的喷射推进实验室都有专案组的人在负责跟监，特别是所有的仪器上的反应。以及未来的一些图像的处理都必须有专人来负责。
My name is Andres Rivera.
My name is Jenny Kampmeyer.
My name is Sarah Elizabeth McCandless, and I am an interplanetary navigator.
I'm Deepak Srinivasan, and I work to make sure that we can communicate with the Europa Clipper spacecraft.
And making sure that Europa Clipper makes its way to Jupiter safely.
I work on Europa Clipper, helping science fiction become science reality.
We're going to Europa to determine whether we have favorable conditions for life.
Here on Earth, no matter what environment you're in, wherever there's water, we found life.
We're going to investigate all those ingredients that we think have led to life as a whole.
But to actually do that, a lot of engineering has to happen.
There's no one person that is responsible for getting this spacecraft built, for designing our science campaigns.
I'm helping enable solar system exploration, helping to enable exploration of the universe.
We're doing some really humanity-changing science.
It's a hard journey to get here. It felt like an impossible dream.
For me personally, being an immigrant, I never really imagined that I would have.
现在是距离发射23分56秒，目前木卫2快船以及这个第2节火箭是在飞行途中，待会在距离发射后的47分40秒，第2节火箭的引擎将会再次点燃。
We're going to be exploring literally the frontiers of life.
Who knows what mission today is going to be that inspiration for the next generation?
That's such an honor to be a part of.
Jenny, I love how emotional you get every single time we see some of the members of your team. And what's incredible is, you know, we did meet a lot, but that's still a fraction of the people who work on this mission.
Absolutely, and it's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. I mean, we totaled it up recently, and there are thousands of people who have worked on this project over the years, so it's amazing.
刚才看到的就是一些计划幕后英雄他们的一些介绍跟简介，主持人特别强调，除了这些人之外，还有这个上千人啊，好几千人参与这一次的任务。
Let's bring back NASA's Antonia Jaramillo.
Thanks, Megan. Joining me is Dr. Robert Papalardo, the Europa Clipper project scientist. You know, Bob, what exactly are we expecting to find, with this Europa Clipper mission?
Well, the Europa Clipper carries the most sophisticated suite of instruments that we've ever sent to the outer solar system. It carries a radar that can penetrate through ice like a CAT scan to find liquid water, super high resolution imaging. We'll be able to look for warm spots, plumes at Europa, all these wonderful techniques that combine together to tell us, could Europa be the kind of place that could support life today?
That is very exciting. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about how scientists will indeed confirm that Europa can support life, like you said?
Sure. We want to understand whether Europa has the so-called ingredients for life. Liquid water, the right chemical elements, and then the energy that could support life. So understanding Europa as a whole can tell us whether those ingredients are there.
And Europa is an ocean world. What kind of ocean are we looking at here? Is it going to be one like Earth that has, a variety of...
您听到的是木卫2快船欧罗巴任务的专案科学家讨论这一次任务它特别的地方。他刚才特别提到这一次所送上去的科学仪器啊，是他们NASA 展开这个外星探测计划以来啊，对于太阳系外星系行星所送过去最高精密度的探测仪器啊，它有所谓的高穿透性雷射，可以穿透冰层，能够探测冰层下的一些状况跟一些这个 活动。另外，它有许多的一些扫描仪器来进行扫描，这也是可以说是回到我们刚才网友刚才讨论的一个题目。他说，为什么要舍近求远？火星不香吗？最主要是这一颗木卫二它很特别，是所有太阳系这么多卫星行星当中唯一目前认定是最有可能有类似冰层以及海洋咸水海洋存在的一颗这个星球，所以科学家想要从这里去找到有没有可能在这样的环境当中也可以有这个孕育生命的一些条件。而火星的话，目前科学所知并没有这样子可以孕育生命存在的一个条件。
I have the coolest job on Europa Clipper. I keep the spacecraft biologically clean. This means I am looking to reduce the amount of bacteria that are stuck to the spacecraft.
Akemi and her team need to keep the spacecraft as biologically clean as possible to help protect this environment as well as the other planets and moons Europa Clipper will encounter.
We're really helped by this awesome clean room here. It does a lot of the work for us. We also monitor everything that's being brought into the clean room. Everything is very tightly controlled. It's cleaned before it comes in, and we sample anything that is going to come.
他们提到在这个组合卫星的无菌室工作的一个情况主要是不希望把这个地球上的一些微生物病菌病毒能够因为发射这样的卫星探测器带入太空。因为过去有一个科学理论有提到其实这个星际与星际之间的生命会被一些运行的陨石或飞行器所不断的在星球之间传播和转移
All of the last little bacteria off into our subcutaneous water.
And then we've moved to the next step, heat shock. What we're trying to do here is kill off all of the weaker types of bacteria and leave just the hardy bacteria.
Next, we're going to filter this. The liquid will filter through, and the bacteria will stick on top of the filter. From there, we put that onto a plate of bacteria food. From there, we let it grow for 3 days. We count every 24 hours for 3 days. They are really diverse, actually. They come in different colors. They can be tall and ridgy or really circular and smooth. Some of them really spread out. We use that number to estimate the number of microbes living on the spacecraft. Think of Europa's ocean like a nature reserve. We don't want to contaminate it with anything from Earth.
Out of the thousands of samples that we've collected, only about a dozen have required us to ask the engineers to re-clean the hardware so that we could go in and resample it.
All right, let's go back to Daryl and Mick to get another status update on the rocket.
Yeah, and we've been following this launch ever since it lifted off at 12:06 and 00 seconds Eastern Daylight Time from right here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We are tracking since then the progress of this coast phase, and we do not have telemetry data currently for it, but we are expecting to pick that back up at our next ground station. We're currently flying over top of close to, as you can see right there, the southern tip of Africa.
Yeah, Daryl, the telemetry and ascent is coast is picked up by the ground stations across the globe.
您现在没有办法看到这个所谓这个木卫二快船以及第二节在空中在太空当中的一个画面，主要是地面接收站的一个讯号盲点待会他们很快就可以连上讯号。
So that's a first time we'll be using that for Falcon Heavy, and things are looking great. So we are hearing that we just got at AOS from our Cape Town ground station, and we were watching telemetry. It just came back on the screen. So things.
有朋友问，所以现在确定木卫二有水蛮好的问题。现在是所有科学理论跟初步验证认为木卫二有厚厚的冰层。至于冰层下面是不是有所谓海洋或是咸水的一个状况存在，就是这一次 他们希望能够进一步确认的一个任务目标。
All right, so we're back online now, and we'll send it back to Megan and Jenny.
And we told you earlier how the spacecraft's sensitive electronics are in a special vault to protect them from Jupiter's intense radiation belts. This is a piece or a replica of a piece of that vault. And as we said, it has U.S. Poet Laureate Ada Limon's poem engraved on it, but also we wanted to point out this.
现在就是我们刚才提的，就是说为了要保护这些仪器在这个还有一些晶片啊，一些探测装置啊，必须有厚厚的一个保护。让这些装置不会受到这个辐射的干扰。
They're not digitally encoded in a microchip. They're actually etched. This kind of micro etching, nano etching
on that
tiny little chip.
Dime.
你可以看到这个 chip 就是把这个瓶中信，就是把大家名字用奈米所刻上的一个晶片。
So I did find out that JPL technicians used an electron beam to stencil all those names, and each line of text was smaller than 1/1000th the width of a human hair.
Yeah,
that is wild.
Absolutely wild.
所以有参加这个瓶中信这个活动的人，他的人名是被刻在这个微小的晶片上面。
Again, as you said, 2.6 million wanted to take a part in this.
总共有260万人
It really is incredible that, the public got so excited. Everyone wanted to send their name along Europa Clipper out to Jupiter.
And just really quick, let's come back here live to the desk. Can you flip over the vault plate? Because there's so much in with this vault plate. We want to point out.
有朋友非常幽默说，今天没有 Power by 这个 Starlink。对，另外就是有朋友在提，就有水和海洋不一定就有生命，没错，这就是他们想要去弄清楚，主要是弄清楚这样的环境有没有可能适合孕育生命的条件，倒不是去发现生命。
Was just one of several ways you could be involved in this mission. Some of you took part in an art challenge, so let's take a look at some of those pictures now.
Oh,
that's nice. It's so colorful and beautiful. And Mize is one of the instruments,
Mize
right?
is one of the instruments, and we love saying things like "Go Mize, go!" "Go Clipper goes." That's amazing to see.
Oh, that's great. So what a creative imagination. That is what folks or this child is hoping to maybe see on Europa, right?
Yes, and in kind of our wildest dreams, we hope we see things like that.
A narwhal, yeah. Oh, this is really nice too.
Cool. Yeah, look at that. So that's kind of showing our trip out to Europa, and I love that kind of side view of Europa, seeing the ice and the water underneath. That's amazing.
And if you're home watching and you're saying, wait, I want to submit my picture, my masterpiece of Europa Clipper, there's still time, so just take out your phone and scan the QR code now that you see on your screen. The art challenge is open until the end of the month. Or if you like to wear your love for Europa instead, let's take a look at some other photos now. These are Jupiter and Europa-inspired fashions, and this was part of NASA's Style Challenge #Runway to Jupiter. They look very happy to be wearing the mission logo.
That's awesome. Those look like, I think, knitted or crocheted sweaters. Oh, wow.
This is my Halloween costume.
I could see that.
I'm going to dress up as Jupiter, and you're going to be Europa and just run around me.
That's great.
有朋友特别开玩笑说，这忘了装这个 Starlink 的通讯板其实我刚刚也在想这个问题，因为我是这样想，就是说它飞越的范围应该已经超出 Starlink 可以覆盖的一个范围。最主要是它是不断往这个外太空去前进嘛，然后不断的环绕，然后提升高度，环绕提升高度，然后进入预定的轨道。跟利用 Starlink 然后拍摄返回的这个画面，毕竟还是有一些不一样的地方，这是我的想法。
Jupiter and Europa-inspired fashions. Again, we have another QR code for you now. Trust me, there are so many more creative expressions worth checking out.
主要是传送技术吧，就是之前不是 Starlink 有在试这个所谓雷射传输嘛，那这是可以有帮助的。那以木卫二的这个承重，就是它载荷的重量其实有很多东西，他们必须要决定这个优先顺序吧。所谓的近地的 Starlink 传输回来的一些任务的画面，可能还不是首要的考量。
Deputy Mission Manager for Europa Clipper. Al is responsible for overseeing how the spacecraft operates, navigates, and stays on course during its mission to Europa, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us. Al, can you tell us about your role and the next few weeks for Europa Clipper?
Hello, Raquel. Sure, happy to. Along with Tracy Drain, we take turns in early operations, shift by shift, as you were mentioning, ensuring the health and safety not just of the flight system, but of the mission operations engineering teams that are making this all happen. Looking ahead past today, we have many activities ahead. We're going to be performing characterizations, deployments, and checkouts.
网友这个雪兔 Gaming 讲的说，在火星制造很少氧气的车，我倒是没看过这样方面的资料。不过，如果你有这一方面的话，或者是哪一位朋友有看到这方面资料，也可以提供啊。我倒是很想知道这一方面的讯息。
Performing a flyby of Mars on March 1st, 2025.
Speaking of flybys, Europa Clipper will have flybys of Earth and Mars. So, how does that help it reach its final destination, Jupiter?
So we use planetary flybys to perform what you would consider to be like gravity-fueled maneuvers. The slingshot effect you get by flying by a planet or a moon gives us essentially the ability to add energy to the spacecraft trajectory.
这访问当然是这个之前预录的，但是我有一个发现，不知道大家有没有发现，自从这个所谓的太空新创公司，像是 SpaceX 加入的太空行业当中啊。运用一些新的转播跟播报的技术，跟一些活泼的方式来报道发射以后，就连 NASA 本身一个传统的太空机构，它在这个发射直播、发射转播上也带来变革也可以看到他们越来越多的不同现场的变化、不同的解说跟报道的方式，可以让我们可以更了解。您现在在画面上就可以看到的是，它围绕这个木卫二，你现在在画面上看到这个星球，这个是木星。木卫二其实是红色的那个点，它是借由环绕整个木星系统来进行这个拍摄。
Well, Al, thank you so much for your time. Megan, back to you.
Now, Europa Clipper is carrying 9 science instruments on board, and they all came from all across the country, as you can see on the map on your screen.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? There are just all of these institutions.
给这个雪兔 Gaming 按赞这个有一台安装在 NASA 毅力号火星探测车的腹部，透过电解过程，将火星上的二氧化碳分解为一氧化碳和氧气谢谢这一方面的资讯。
Yep, so that is our ICE instrument. It's actually 2 instruments.
Oh,
and
I see
is
another piece.
Yep, that's our wide-angle camera, and then the larger piece is the narrow-angle camera. And these are basically going to give us those beautiful color, high-resolution photos of Europa.
Cool.
The next one here is eThemis. This is our thermal imager. So this is kind of like our pair of night vision goggles. It's going to help us see spots on the surface where the ice might be warmer, where water might be seeping up from underneath, making that ice melt.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then these two instruments, this is MISE and this is Europa UVS. And these are two of our spectroscopy instruments. So let's talk a little bit about spectroscopy. So take this, we're gonna do a little demo here. So yeah, hold that. I'm gonna hold some of these rocks.
Okay.
So before you turn that on, these look like rocks you might just
regular rocks.
Yeah,
in my backyard.
find on your backyard, find on a hike. They're white, they're gray, they're maybe.
现场在解说这一次仪器的功用非常有意思。
When you turn on that flashlight and take a look at them again.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah.
This one is bright yellow. This one's bright green. Oh, and this one's like red.
Isn't that amazing?
So what's happening here?
Yeah, so spectroscopy is basically studying how light interacts with objects and how it may tell us a little bit more about what is going on inside of that object. So looking under visual light without the flashlight, it looks one way.
Right.
But when we put UV light on it, like Europa UVS will do, it can help us see what the rocks are made of.
Wow.
And so that's what both MISE and Europa UVS are going to be doing in the infrared and the ultraviolet parts of the light spectrum.
It's really amazing what you guys can do from just imaging. Like, you're not landing, again, this is not a mission that's landing a spacecraft anywhere, but look what you can figure out just by pointing a camera.
Exactly. By pointing a camera and using different wavelengths of light, we can understand.
透过现场展示非常有意思，就是利用这些仪器可以分辨岩石上的一些成分跟不同这样的展示实际上可以让人家更加了解这次木卫二任务的一些运作的方式。
We're going to show you the The other 5 after we head back out to Tony, actually. So, Tony, the Europa Clipper mission was developed with Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory.
That's right, Megan. And joining us virtually is Bobby Brown, the head of Johns Hopkins APL Space Exploration Sector Head. Bobby, can you tell us a little bit about where you are and how you and the teams are feeling at this moment?
Yeah, well, good morning. I'm standing here in the Mission Support Area East, which is one of 2 mission support facilities. One's at JPL, that's the primary one, and then we have a facility here in Laurel, Maryland as well. And I'm standing here with members of the operations team who have been plugged in all day and are part of this mission.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you and the team. And in your mind, what makes Europa Clipper so unique?
Europa Clipper is among the most special of special missions that we do in planetary science. The science itself is amazing. It's something that's been in work for 15 years. The spacecraft is huge. It's going to a destination that you could really just dream of. You know, think about the moon, but the moon, you know, our Earth's moon, but with twice the volume of water that we have on the Earth. And our spacecraft's going there to explore. It's a very large spacecraft, very heavy spacecraft, and of course soon our magnificent solar arrays are going to deploy. These solar arrays are 100 feet across. So this is the largest, most significant.
有朋友问说，这个说故事圈起来还是挺重要。NASA 资金来源除了政府之外，还有其他的吗？据我了解，最主要的还是政府的资助，以及一些学术单位的合作。那学术单位他们所有其他的经费，有可能是来自其他的捐献跟其他的企业的赞助，所以 NASA 本身主要的经费来源是来自政府的预算。其实 NASA 不只是没有所谓赚钱的管道，应该说是很少赚钱的管道。它有卖一些这个纪念品啊，一些门票啊，一些参观啊，这其实在太空任务来说都是非常微小。而且呢，它基本上是开源的，就是所谓开放大家来多多运用它的研究和资料的，也欢迎大家能够借由这个 NASA 免费提供的一些资料来进行这个相关的科研，这其实是非常了不起的地方。
On past missions like Galileo. We also built the PIMS instrument, which is one of 2 instruments that's looking at the magnetic field and the plasma surrounding Europa. It's going to tell us a great deal. Together, they will tell us a great deal about the ocean beneath the icy surface. And then with JPL, we worked on the MISE instrument, which is that spectrometer that you were just talking about in the previous segment.
That is very exciting indeed. I know we're all very much looking forward to the data that we get back from those instruments. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us. Back over to you, Megan.
Really cool to hear from APL, and thank you, APL, for your contributions to this mission. As promised, we now have models of the remaining 5 instruments on Europa Clipper. So, Jenny, what do we have now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start over here again.
Okay.
So now these 2 instruments, that furthest one is MassSpecs.
Okay.
And then the next one is SUDA. And then both of these together are a dust detector and a mass spectrometer. So these instruments are going to be kind of directly tasting particles that are in the environment around the spacecraft.
Tasting?
Yeah, so kind of as we're flying past, particles will be hitting their sensors and we'll be able to tell what they're made of, how fast they're going, and doing that kind of chemical analysis.
Oh, okay.
The 3 over here that we have photos of, because they're really big, so we can't have
You couldn't
models.
fit them on the desk?
That's right, they wouldn't fit on the desk. The 3 of these together are going to be able to tell us about the interior structure of Europa. So we'll start on the end with REASON. REASON is our ice-penetrating radar.
Okay.
That's going to help us understand how thick the ice is, places where it may be thinner. And then PIMS and our magnetometer are studying the plasma fields and the magnetic fields. So let's talk a little bit about the magnetic fields, because this is a really interesting part of Europa. So let's do a little demo.
Okay.
So I want you to hold this.
All right.
We're going to pretend this is Jupiter.
Right.
And you can see there's kind of a magnet inside with some of these iron filings. So go ahead and give that a quick shake. Oh yeah, shake it up real good, real good. There you go. Awesome.
Okay.
So now it might be hard to see, but you can see that that iron is flowing around like the magnetic fields of Jupiter. So if you were to just take a rock and move around, you know, you wouldn't really see much, but try it with that.
A magnet.
Yeah, so that one's magnetic.
Whoa, it's attracting all the little metal shavings.
Exactly. So that's basically, we're kind of pretending that this is Europa in this situation. So the way we discovered that there was an ocean underneath the ice is because there was a little bit of a wobble in the magnetic fields. And we were able to infer from that there must be some sort of conductive layer underneath the ice.
I see.
And so if Europa didn't have that conductive layer of ocean, we wouldn't see this kind of interaction with the magnetic fields.
Gotcha.
So our magnetometer instrument that we have on the payload is super, super important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Yeah.
All right, so we've been following along with the Falcon Heavy second stage as it continues its journey out with Europa Clipper. So let's head back to NASA's Daryl Nail and Mick Waltman for the next operational milestone.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting ready to relight the second stage engine on the second stage of the rocket, carrying Europa Clipper, and it is just moments away, Mick. We're at T plus 47 minutes and 30 seconds, getting ready to relight. This is a longer burn than the first burn.
Yeah, this is the burn that will get us into that ITO, or interplanetary transfer orbit, allowing.
现在进行第二次的点火，这一次的点火时间会比较长。
For MVAC ignition, the engine was chilled down prior to this, and ignition has happened, and second burn is continuing on.
So this is a 3-minute and 21-second burn of the second stage. If you're familiar with the amazing views that we have at this point, then you know that we've got the camera on the second stage. However, we are not expecting to see that view for this particular burn, and there's an important reason for that, and that is because we've been on ground stations leading up into this point, but for the duration of this second burn, we are pulling data through the TDRS network. The TDRS network, a legacy satellite system in geo orbit that is going to help us out fill in the gap so we can at least pull down the important telemetry of what is going on.
Yeah, we're seeing the telemetry coming through, and things are looking good on the telemetry, and but as you stated, we can't process that video through there.
待会一个关键时间点大概是在这个1小时07分左右，也就是木卫二快船跟第二节火箭进行分离。当然我们今天不会看到最后的绕行飞行，因为还要5年半的时间才会抵达木星哦。也大家可以看一看，就是在5年半以后，我们还有没有办法在这边一起观看它飞越木星的一个画面。到时候的世界究竟是什么样的样子？人类已经送飞行器到火星，还是一个什么样的样貌和世界？真的让人非常的好奇。
Altitude and bandwidth for video takes up a lot more, so we opt to get the launch vehicle data, and things continue to look good for this burn.
Anyone who has downloaded video onto their phone knows about bandwidth. You got to have a good connection. You got to have a cell phone that's on a wide connection in order to pull down video. So we will not have video for any part of this second burn. Also, the spacecraft team is not getting any of the telemetry being pulled down because, again, as you said, there's a high priority on the communications about where that rocket stage is.
Yeah, absolutely. And this burn continues, and we're about 30 seconds away from the end of this burn, and we'll see how things continue to move. But we're watching the telemetry here, Daryl, and you can see that the acceleration of stage 2 and velocity continue to increase as stage 2 is performing its job.
预计在50分56秒的时候，第二节引擎会关闭，然后在12分钟左右，第二节跟所谓的木卫二快船要进行分离。现场杂音很重。这个第二节准备第二次的点火准备要关闭。刚才我们不小心有看到一个画面他们说目前所谓的频宽主要用来通讯跟指挥能够传送画面的机会比较少。 好的，您现在看到的是这个准备要关闭这个第二次点火的一个画面。
All right, it's been now about 51 minutes, nearly 52 minutes since launch. Our coverage is going to take you through separation and getting the first possible signal from the Europa Clipper spacecraft. Let's head back over to JPL, where NASA's Raquel is somewhere new to tell us about the Deep Space Network.
Yeah, Megan, this is a wider look at the Space Flight Operations Facility at JPL, where NASA operates the Deep Space Network. This powerful system is able to communicate with spacecraft traveling beyond the moon. And joining us today is Amy Smith, the Deputy Project Manager for the Deep Space Network. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
So your team is waiting to hear from Europa Clipper. Can you tell us why the Deep Space Network is so important with establishing communication with spacecraft?
Yes, so the Deep Space Network is part of NASA's Space Communication and Navigation Program, and it is the critical link between scientists and mission controllers on the ground and more than 40 missions that are exploring our solar system and beyond today. So the Deep Space Network is made up of 14 very large antennas strategically located around the world. We have a complex here in Southern California, one outside of Madrid, Spain, and another one in Canberra, Australia. And those are about equidistant around the world, as you can see in this graphic, so that wherever your spacecraft is, when it needs to communicate to Earth, it can see one of our Deep Space Network antennas. So with the Deep Space Network, we can send commands to our spacecraft, we can collect all that amazing science data, and we can even collect navigation data so that the teams know where their spacecraft is.
Yeah, and what is Europa Clipper doing right now, and which location do you expect to establish communication with first?
Yeah, so the radio on the spacecraft will turn on about its separation and start warming up and sending a downlink signal back to Earth. And we have antennas at our Canberra complex, which are set up right now and waiting for that signal.
And then after that, what is your team doing to prepare for signal acquisition before and after?
Yeah, so the Deep Space Network is here to support our missions, and so we work really closely with the missions to understand what they're going to need, especially in a critical event like today. The mission provides all of those parameters to the Deep Space Network so that we can set up our antennas, to be looking at the right place in the sky, to have all of those downlink set up just perfectly so that when the signal comes in, we'll be able to see it. So the first thing we're going to see with our antennas is the carrier frequency. We'll see that pop up and we'll lock onto that, and then we can start to decode the data that's on there. And once we are able to decode data, we'll start sending that directly to the mission operations team so that they can use the data to see what's going on the spacecraft and make decisions about what to do next. Eventually, they'll ask the Deep Space Network to turn on the uplink, so we will establish coherent two-way communication, which means we'll still be collecting data, but then we can send commands to the spacecraft, and we'll start collecting that critical navigation data that the team needs.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Amy. Megan, back to you.
Thank you, Raquel and Amy. And once Europa Clipper is launched, you can follow along with its journey using NASA's Eyes on the Solar System, which you can check out by scanning this QR code. It's a 3D program that allows you to zip around our solar system to learn about planets, asteroids, comets, moons like Europa, and spacecraft like Europa Clipper. And remember, Europa Clipper is not a life detection mission. Again, instead, it is looking for the right conditions that could support life. Now, check on the clock. We are now 55 minutes.
现在越来越接近这个木卫二准备跟第二节火箭分离的时间了。今天可以看到，有朋友在说，好像来观看这一次这个发射的人，没有像星舰这么热闹其实每次都是这样子，就是有关于科研实验的关心的人稍微少一点，但是星舰发射关心的人都稍微多一点，这其实是蛮正常的现象。主要还是因为新闻的报道跟炒作让大家会比较关注这个星舰的一些计划。当然星舰计划本身它的值得关注点呢也的确是比较高的。那科研的话，愿意花时间耐心跟各位一样守候来观看和讨论的毕竟是小众，所以一开始在进行这样的一个频道的时候，就是针对所谓的小众群体，就是一些喜欢热心相互讨论的一些网友 也欢迎您加入我们。如果您是刚刚看到这个视频，也欢迎您订阅我们，加入我们。如果是觉得还不错，也可以按赞鼓励。这是当初想要借由这样的一个小众的频道来跟大家一起观赏观看所谓各种航天器的发射。
Stays cool and it gets going, and we get that thermal roll that's going on. But everything's looking good, and the initial data we got from stage 2 performance looked really good and nominal for that second burn. So we're definitely looking forward to Europa Clipper separation here shortly, as we can see this camera view of Europa Clipper on the front of the SpaceX stage 2 launch vehicle.
Yeah, that's a great shot of the spacecraft going out the forward end. Europa Clipper, the largest spacecraft that NASA has ever built and sent into space on a planetary mission.
There we see the camera view of the MVAC-D that did its job in the shutdown, and the picture of Europa Clipper on the front of the stage 2. Things continue to look good as we see the altitude of stage 2 continuing to increase during this coast. And the velocity is ramping down into a steady state. Things continue to look very good, getting ready for separation in roughly 5 minutes.
Now we are having that video signal appear and then disappear. We do know that with the spacecraft doing that thermal roll, that can cause signal fluctuations, right, Mick?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on ground station tracking, and as it slightly moves around, we lose the connection a little bit, but we're getting great data so far as the vehicle continues to perform well.
We really want to be locked in at T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes and 32 seconds. That's the current time that we have for the separation of the Europa Clipper spacecraft, and that is a big moment, and we want to be able to see that because as we've seen,
最关键的分离要来了，也就是木星木卫二号快船要跟第二节分离说拜拜，准备单独的前往木星卫星的一个重要关键。
Some of the team talk about it, but it just blows me away. The 30-meter, fairing of the solar rays. Wish we could see that and all, but this mission is just so excited. Got so many people behind it, and we are just looking.
我们看到网友这个 George 讲说，把所有任务交给 SpaceX team 有望今生能看见地外生命非常 trust 这个 SpaceX， 也给他们很多的鼓励。
My Flight Analysis Division Chief, Mr. Mike Carney. He has been working on a Europa mission for at least 25 years in his career. He started out as a trajectory analyst for a Europa mission way back when at Lewis. And when he came to LSP, he's worked on Europa off and on over the years. So shout out to you, Mike, for the great job and the rest of the team on Europa Clipper today.
We just passed the 1 hour mark of flight.
还有1-2分钟就要进行分离。
Falcon Heavy, second stage. As you can see from this trajectory, Mick, it's going away from Earth.
Yeah, this is that interplanetary transfer orbit that we talked about. That first burn got us into that park orbit around Earth. And this second stage, second burn on second stage did a great job of getting us on that way as we get ready to separate Europa Clipper to get ready for those flybys, to get those gravity assists to get out there to the Europa moon. Things look continuing to look very well on the stage performance as it coasts through, getting ready for separation. Trajectory looks nominal.
And Europa Clipper is going to be deployed in a very high radiation environment.
他们一直想卡这个等一下分离的镜头等一下可以看到木卫二快船跟这个第二节火箭进行分离。
As this deployment is in the Van Allen radiation belts.
Yeah, we talked. One of the things that we had to monitor today during today's launch was solar proton flux. Team had to keep an eye on that for solar flares and things going on. to make sure we heard earlier about the special radiation area where the electronics are and for the spacecraft, and so solar proton flux went very well today, and we got this launch off. Things looking really good. We're about a minute away from payload separation, expected payload separation. Things continue to look good as the stage 2 altitude continues to increase. Velocity has a steady state now for stage 2, and things looking really good for this portion of the mission.
Getting close now.
哇，准备要分离了。
Less than 30 seconds away from separation. There you see the Europa spacecraft. Those massive solar panels that you were talking about all stacked together.
这算不算最后一眼？因为它5年半以后要飞到这个木星，等于说是不会再见到它，只能看到它发回来的影像。当然飞行器上面的一些探测装置应该也可以进行自拍。哇哦，进行分离了，成功进行分离。
NASA's Europa Clipper probe embarking on a long-awaited mission to study Jupiter's icy moon Europa. And what a sight, Mick.
That is absolutely gorgeous, Gerald, to see Europa Clipper on its way. Successful deployment from stage 2. Falcon Heavy performed very well today. Teams behind us are clapping and enjoying. That is a beautiful.
很高兴今天基本上进行到这都还蛮顺利。你可以看到的是木卫二号快船与第2节火箭分离远离的画面。
There is the Europa Clipper flight director, Pranay Mishra. He's with the mission support team.
Okay, all stations, we are waiting for sign of initial acquisition. Again, Telecom will confirm when we have carrier lock, and DDM will let us know when they see the first packet down.
You can see the second stage and the spacecraft just hit orbital sunrise, fully illuminated by the sun coming over the Earth. And as you just heard the flight director say, they are now going to be monitoring for an acquisition of signal.
Yes, this will be the first time the spacecraft gets information. Looking forward for that.
在这边要更正，刚才说是木卫二快船分离航向土星是错误的，是航向木星啊、哦，这里不知道怎么搞的。
On your left, you see Europa Clipper. On your right, this is telemetry coming. Or actually, this is the ground station looking for a spike, looking for a handshake with the spacecraft. And we expect to see that in the form of a blip.
Daryl, as you say, they expect that here in a few seconds, but it can happen in a few seconds or anywhere from 15 minutes from now. So the team is closely monitoring this and looking for that, and we're hoping that we can gain AOS here very shortly.
现在也就是太空发射最重要的关键，就是与分离的航空器哦，能够取得数据上的联系。
comment from the video that we could see that the sun was on the neg-y side of the spacecraft. There were very low visible separation rates, and the negative z-axis was pointed at Earth, so this should be favorable for comm.
Copy, GNC. Thank you.
An acknowledgement from the team that sunlight could help things out. They're looking to warm up the amplifiers.
Go, Faith.
Sorry, I missed the session IDs for our SA sessions from GDS. Can you or GDS repeat those for me?
We did not call them out on that yet.
有朋友讲到，就是说在镜头有时候会看一些像灰烬的东西飞来飞去，不知道是什么有的时候是太空当中的一些这个零碎的物质，但是我觉得，就我所能够了解的，有时候是那个飞行器上面的一些在飞行的一个冰层，因为或是一些冰粒，因为在飞行升空的途中上面所附着的一些东西，在这个极度低温的情况之下，在飞行的当中所脱离。那当然也是太空中本身存在一些这个飞散的物质也希望有更进一步讯息和了解的朋友可以帮我补充。
170506.
Systems, you copy that time?
Copy, thank you.
Again, that's Europa Clipper Flight Director Pranay Mishra leading his team.
现在他们在等待这个发射成功啊。
In this mission, the Applied Physics Laboratory, their team on console as well. We're continuing to monitor the search for a signal.
等待讯号。
And I believe we have it. There it is.
好的，这一次木卫二快船发射任务宣布成功，取得联系讯号啊，可以说是非常值得兴奋的事。木卫二快船可以说是成功分离，航向木星。 今天非常高兴能够为您进行直播，也感谢大家能够聚在这里一起加入我们的讨论。希望我们下次还有机会能够在这个直播当中再见面。 谢谢大家。